Hey everyone, it's Dr. NightStare. Glad you're here. Before we get into it, hit like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. Quick question before we start. Where are you watching from, and what time is it for you right now? Alright, let's get settled. Get comfortable, let your body relax, and just take it easy. Our brigantine, the Dei Gratia, spotted her first, a peculiar sight on the wide, calm Atlantic. She drifted with an unsettling lack of purpose, her sails mostly furled. The clear morning sky showed no sign of recent gales, and the gentle swell barely moved her. Captain Morehouse ordered us to approach. Our initial thought was that some damage had rendered her helpless, perhaps a broken mast or snapped rigging. We expected to find a crew signaling for aid. As we drew closer, the vessel's name, Mary Celeste, became clear on her bow. A stark contradiction then presented itself. The ship appeared unnervingly intact. Her hull seemed sound, and the deck planks lay unbroken. No distress flag flew from her mast. No figures moved across her decks to acknowledge our presence. She was a vessel perfectly capable of sailing, yet utterly deserted without any discernible cause for her abandonment. A deep unease rippled through our crew as we circled the unmoving ship. A small boat carried a boarding party across the narrow strip of water separating our ships. We stepped onto the Mary Celeste's deck, noticing the complete absence of a single human sound or presence. The ship's interior proved equally confounding, a contradiction to the desertion we had already witnessed. We found the cargo hold battened down, secured with meticulous care, and the precious alcohol barrels remained untouched in their places. Below deck, the captain's cabin and the crew quarters showed no signs of struggle or forced entry. Clothes remained neatly folded in drawers, and personal effects lay scattered on bunks, as though their owners had stepped away for only a moment. The galley contained ample provisions, foodstuffs still stocked in their designated places, and water casks were full. A half-prepared meal sat on the table in the mess, a plate of food waiting for someone who would never return. A sewing machine held a partially stitched garment, its needle still embedded in the fabric. A child's small toy rested beside a bunk. Everything remained exactly as it should have been, yet no soul drew breath within those wooden walls. The complete order of the ship, the meticulous arrangement of every item, created a disquieting sense of lives abruptly halted, a chilling tableau of existence cut short without warning or reason. Our eyes then scanned the ship's main deck. We discovered deep gouge marks scored into the wooden railings along the starboard side. Something had scraped across the tough timber with great force. The marks stretched for several feet and ended near the helm. This damage contradicted the ship's otherwise sound state. Inside the captain's cabin, we found another discovery. The ship's logbook rested open on the desk. Its last entry was dated November 25th, 10 days prior. The captain had penned one sentence: "Something is traveling unnaturally." No other words followed it, nor any further explanation. This notation offered no clarity. It deepened the mystery of the Mary Celeste. We returned to the deck and saw the lifeboat davits. The ropes that once secured the ship's small boat hung down, cut clean. The lifeboat itself was gone from its position. Its absence solidified the fact that the crew had left the vessel quickly. These marks on the ship provided no answers. They pointed to an unseen event that had forced the crew to flee. We sailed away from the Mary Celeste, leaving her adrift as we had discovered her. No bodies were ever found, no trace of the crew, nor any wreckage in the sea that could explain their absence. The ship's pristine condition, its cargo secure and personal belongings undisturbed, provided no logical reason for the sudden abandonment. We delivered our report, describing a vessel perfectly capable of sailing, yet utterly deserted without a struggle or clear cause. The Mary Celeste became an enduring mystery. a chilling example that some disappearances offer no clues whatsoever. It presented us with the unsettling truth that certain events leave nothing behind but an unknowable circumstance that forever eludes all explanation. I moved through the sleeping village. The crescent moon offered me little light, but I needed no human vision. My hunger guided me forward, a cold, sharp pull. Every breath of wind carried the scent of slumbering life, a promise of warmth. The houses passed by as dark squares against the deeper night. I felt no impediment from the simple crucifix above the church door. Its power had withered with the faith of these villagers. The scent of withered roses in a garden did not deter me, for their ancient ward against my kind had long been forgotten. Belief was a shield, and this place lacked it completely. My focus narrowed to one house. It stood slightly apart, a flicker of something pure emanating from its walls. The child within drew me closer, a beacon in the vast sleeping emptiness. I felt the innocent energy, sweet and vibrant, waiting for me. I approached the dwelling without a sound, a shadow among shadows, an echo of forgotten terror. The door offered no resistance, only wood and air. The window panes reflected the dim moon, showing me nothing of my own form, only the world beyond. My unholy appetite quickened. The final approach to my prize was now beginning. My eyes opened in the dark. I felt the nightmare. It was the same one, a shadow moving through the house, always heading for my room. I pulled my blanket closer. My heart beat fast against my ribs. A chill from the dream seeped into my bones. I tried to close my eyes. I wanted sleep to come back. The dark room felt large and empty. I needed my parents. I slid from my bed. My bare feet landed on the cool wooden floor. The hallway was dark. I moved fast, making no sound, towards the thin line of light under their door. I pushed the door open. I stepped into the moonlight coming through their window. Mama stirred first, her eyes opened. Papa mumbled. He then sat up, rubbing his eyes. "What is it, little one?" he asked. His voice was deep from sleep. I climbed between them. Their bodies felt warm. "The bad dream," I whispered. "The monster." Mama stroked my hair. "There are no monsters, my love," she said. Her voice was firm. It was also soft. "They are just pretend." Papa held me close. "Monsters aren't real," he said. "You are safe here with us. Go back to your bed. You will sleep well now." I felt a little silly for being scared. The fear began to go. Their words were a strong comfort. I was safe. I believed them. I would go back to my bed and sleep. I walked back to my room. My parents' comfort warmed me. I climbed into my bed and pulled the blanket to my chin. The darkness waited. I closed my eyes tightly, thinking of my father's voice that said monsters were not real, that I was safe. The words felt true. I felt sleep begin. A chill then sank into the room. This cold sank into my skin. I opened my eyes. The room was black. The cold grew around me. My breath misted. A putrid smell then filled the air. The smell was of rot and decay, burning my nose, turning my stomach. Chittering came from the room's corner. It grew louder, moved closer. It sounded like many tiny, sharp things rubbing together. My heart beat faster against my ribs. A giggle then floated through the air. It was not a child's giggle. It sounded dry, old. It came from right beside my bed. The sound surrounded me, above and below. My muscles locked. I could not scream. My throat felt closed. The chittering grew louder. The giggle turned into a mocking laugh. It echoed through the room. The cold pressed down. The smell choked me. My father's voice came back. "Monsters aren't real," he had said. This was real. The cold was real. The smell was real. The sounds were real. The words felt like a lie. The monster was here. It was everywhere. It was in my room, around me, waiting. I closed my eyes again. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to be back with my parents. The bed felt cold. The blanket offered no warmth. My body trembled. The chittering stopped. The air grew heavy. A shape moved closer to my bed. It was tall and thin. Long arms reached out, grasping. Two small red eyes peered from its sunken face. Its mouth opened wide, a tear in its darkness. It showed many sharp teeth. A horrible smell came from it. It made a dry, rasping sound. Then it lunged. My heart leaped, and terror seized me. My hand shot out, grabbing my blanket. I pulled it up, covering my head completely. I squeezed my eyes shut. A sudden white light erupted. It was blinding. It pressed against the fabric of the blanket. I heard a shriek. It was a searing, painful noise. The air grew hot at once. I felt the heat through the blanket. The putrid smell grew stronger for a second. The shriek cut off at once. The light vanished. The oppressive cold lifted from the room. I stayed hidden under my blanket. My breath came in ragged gasps. I waited. The room was quiet again. The putrid smell was gone. I uncovered my head slowly. The room was dark, but it felt different. It felt safe again. The monster was gone. My blanket was protection. It held an ancient power. Children knew this deep inside. The doorbell always rang late on those nights, a sound that pulled me from sleep and into the quiet of our house. I would slip out of bed, careful not to wake my sister in the bunk above, and make my way to the living room. Arjan would already be there, perched on the edge of our worn couch, his small backpack beside him. My mother would be wrapping him in a blanket, offering him warm milk or a cookie. This was our routine, a pattern that became a consistent part of our childhood, occurring with the regularity of changing seasons. His mother had her difficult times, periods when her thoughts spun too fast, and our home became his temporary refuge. We never spoke of it much, Arjun and I, but a shared understanding settled between us, needing no words. He would usually arrive tired but calm, ready to settle into the guest room, and by morning we would resume our games of tag or build elaborate forts in the backyard. Our parents had an arrangement, a quiet agreement passed through whispered phone calls and shared glances, where my mother knew to expect him when things became too much at his house. This setup felt natural to us, a simple fact of our lives, blending into the everyday. One lazy Saturday afternoon, Arjun and I sprawled on the living room carpet, surrounded by scattered comic books. The usual quiet of the house held a peaceful warmth, but that calm shattered when the doorbell exploded into a frantic, insistent sound. It rang again immediately, a desperate, rapid series of chimes that made my stomach clench. I exchanged a wide-eyed glance with Arjun, who had frozen mid-sentence, his small face pale. No one ever rang our doorbell like that, not even our closest neighbors. I pushed myself up slowly, my legs feeling heavy, and walked towards the front door. Arjun stayed rooted to the carpet, watching me with an anxious gaze. Through the peephole, a distorted face swam into view, a tangle of dark hair framing eyes that were too wide and too bright. It was Arjun's mother, but she was wrong. Her usually neat hair stood out in wild disarray, and her plain blouse was rumpled and stained with something dark down the front. Her lips moved without making a sound. Then she started pounding on the door, a soft, rhythmic thudding that sent shivers down my back. I took a shaky breath, my hand hovering over the lock. Her eyes darted around, not seeing me directly, but scanning the area behind me as if pursued by something only she could perceive. Her head twitched to the side, then back, a jerky movement that felt completely unnatural. Her familiar features seemed warped, her mouth pulled into a strange, unsettling grimace instead of her usual worried frown. A cold knot formed deep in my chest. This person at our door wore Arjun's mother's face, but the life within her, the essence I recognized, was disturbingly absent. I could not open the door. My mother found us much later, huddled together on the living room floor amidst the scattered comics. Arjun's small hand gripped my shirt, his face still pale from the fright. I did not speak of the woman at the door, could not form the words to describe the fear I felt. My mother, sensing our distress, gently led Arjun to the guest room and then sat beside me on the couch, stroking my hair. She called Arjun's father later that evening, her voice low and worried, but I only heard fragments of their conversation. Days passed before Arjun returned home. When he next came over for our routine visit, a calmness had settled over him, the memory of that Saturday afternoon already fading from his small mind. My mother, however, brought it up to me one evening while we washed dishes. She spoke in a quiet voice, explaining that Arjun's mother had stayed home that entire weekend, resting in her bedroom. She had not left the house, not even once. My mother believed her, accepting the explanation without question, her face showing a gentle understanding of the difficulties Arjun's mother faced. But I knew what I had seen. The woman at our door, with her wild hair and strange, shifting eyes, was not the mother Arjun knew. Her grimace was not a familiar expression, and her movements were too sharp, too disjointed to be her own. The stain on her blouse, the desperate pounding, all of it remained vivid in my mind. That cold knot still tightened in my chest when I thought of her. The person who stood on our porch wore Arjun's mother's face, but the being inside was a terrifying stranger. The memory stayed with me, a chilling conviction that settled deep within my bones, leaving an unspoken, unsettling question of who had truly come calling that day. I pressed my back against the cold tile of the airport bathroom stall, trying to melt into the grimy grout. Each breath felt like sandpaper in my throat. The overhead lights buzzed. My phone, a cold weight in my clammy hand, showed a single unread message. Outside the stall, footsteps shuffled, then stopped right outside my door. My heart hammered against my ribs. This fear had been building for longer than I wanted to admit, stretching back to a message that arrived completely out of the blue. It was an Instagram DM, a name I hadn't seen pop up in years, Evan. His profile picture was an old photo from college, slightly blurry, a reminder of a time before everything changed. The message itself was simple enough. "Hey, is this still you?" But the speed of his follow-up, a quick succession of question marks and an eager smiley face, felt a little off, too immediate for someone who hadn't reached out in so long. He replied instantly, bringing up specific memories and inside jokes only we would understand. He recounted past stories, each detail perfectly recalled. He spoke of a deep connection I hadn't remembered feeling. He presented our shared history as if we were destined for something more. He mentioned our old coffee shop, a specific song, even the exact shade of my favorite sweater. A feeling of unease began to grow inside me. It felt like he knew me too well, or knew an idealized version of me he wanted to create. He never pressed for my current life details, instead always steering the conversation back to our shared history. He said things like, "I always wondered what could have been, and I never stopped thinking about you." Words that were flattering but felt a little too practiced. I dismissed the strange feeling as residual nerves from reconnecting with an old flame. Then came the suggestion to meet. He was supposedly in the city where I lived for a work conference, and he proposed a quick dinner. I hesitated for a moment, the unease gnawing at me, but his insistent charm and the pull of our imagined past overwhelmed my doubt. He sounded so eager, so excited, that I convinced myself my gut was wrong. I dismissed my growing apprehension and booked a flight to meet him. I told myself it was just to catch up, to see an old friend, harmless. The plane droned, pulling me closer to the city. Mid-flight, a sudden urge made me tag Evan's profile in a story. Moments later, my phone buzzed. A DM from a profile I didn't immediately recognize. But the name was Evan. His messages were frantic. I opened his profile. Recent photos showed him smiling with another woman, a diamond glinting on her hand. Engagement photos confirmed his real life. The man I had talked to was an imposter. Then a new text appeared on my screen from the number I'd been texting. "Don't ruin this. You are almost here." I shuffled down the jet bridge, my gaze darting around the disembarking crowd. Then I saw him standing motionless at the exit, a dark shape against the terminal lights. He was looking directly at me. I recognized the sharp glint of his eyes, not from any photo but from the sudden tightening in my chest. My feet moved before my brain could process. I spun around, pushing past startled passengers running back toward the gate area. A sign for restrooms glowed nearby. I burst through the door, my breath ragged in my lungs. I slammed into the nearest stall, locking the flimsy bolt with a frantic click. The sudden quiet of the small space offered no comfort. Moments later, the outer door of the bathroom hissed open and then closed. Footsteps sounded on the tile, slow and deliberate, moving closer. My eyes were fixed on the gap beneath the stall door. The footsteps stopped right outside my stall. A long moment stretched, filled only with the frantic thump of my heart. Then a hand pushed against the wood, rattling the latch with surprising force. The bolt held, but the wood groaned. I pressed back, my whole body trembling. Then a shadow slipped beneath the door. Fingers, long and pale, stretched inward, reaching, searching for my feet. My phone vibrated in my hand. I glanced down. A new message from the unknown number. "I see you." A second message followed instantly. "This is just beginning." I drove my car from Denver on the long night journey to Albuquerque. The highway stretched ahead, a well-known path beneath my wheels. This drive had become a regular part of my life, a routine I knew well. I turned off the interstate in Pueblo, Colorado, seeking a quick stop. A fast food restaurant glowed with artificial light, its drive-through queue moving steadily. I ordered my usual meal and felt the comforting routine of the moment. The town lights created a sense of security around me. I sat in my parked car, eating, feeling safe and in control of my journey. I finished my fries, looking out at the parking lot lights, and then a tap came at my driver's side window. I turned my head quickly and saw a woman standing there. She had an average look, dressed in dark pants and a jacket. She held her hands together as if she were cold. She gestured towards the dark edge of the parking lot and said her car had broken down just beyond the light post. Her voice was quiet and polite, asking if I could help her get a jump start. I looked at her face for a moment, seeing nothing obviously wrong, but a cold sensation nevertheless crept through my chest. The sense of security I had just felt began to drain away. I did not know why, but I felt a strong urge to drive away. Her knuckles rapped against the glass again, louder this time. Her hand reached for the driver's side door handle, and her polite expression tightened into something cold as she began to twist the mechanism. She pulled hard on the locked door handle, her movements jerky with unexpected force. My heart raced, and my breath caught sharply in my throat as I could only stare at her face pressed against the window. The cold sensation in my chest flared into a full-blown panic. Then a sudden movement caught my eye from the dark alley beside the building, and 3 men sprinted out into the open. They ran directly towards the car she had gestured at earlier, the car she claimed was broken down beyond the light post. The men flung open the doors of that vehicle and piled inside. Its engine roared, suddenly alive, and the car accelerated backward with a screech, then sped out of the parking lot into the night. The woman gave my window one last glare, a flash of pure malice, before she turned and ran full speed towards the speeding vehicle. She scrambled into the passenger seat as it gained speed. This was not a broken-down car at all. This was an ambush, a trap set just for me. The car carrying the woman and the men disappeared into the dark night. My hands gripped the steering wheel. My knuckles turned white. My body started to tremble, a deep shiver shaking me from within. Cold sweat covered my skin as the horror of what nearly happened settled upon me. They had planned to take me. I had almost opened my door. The simple act of stopping for food had nearly cost me everything. The empty parking lot lights offered no comfort. Lily used to chase butterflies across sunlit fields, her laughter echoing. Now she sat in her wheelchair, a ghost in her own body. The accident had stolen her legs, but the aftermath took her spirit. I watched her every day, seeing the vibrant girl I knew slowly vanish, replaced by a hollow shell. Her eyes, once bright with curiosity, now held only a distant, vacant stare. She stopped speaking altogether, her world shrinking to the confines of her room, then to the silent corners of her mind. A cold dread gripped my heart as I witnessed her gradual descent. Doctors offered sympathy and rehabilitation plans, but nothing touched the core of her despair. She simply existed, a quiet testament to what had been lost. I could not stand by and watch her fade completely. I spent sleepless nights researching, devouring every article, every medical journal, every fringe theory that offered even a sliver of hope. Conventional medicine had failed her, and I knew I needed to look beyond it. My search grew desperate, pushing me into the internet's darker corners. I navigated through shadowy forums and encrypted chat rooms, places where people spoke of miracles and forbidden science. One late night, buried deep within a forgotten thread, I found it, a mention of an experimental limb regrowth clinic, a place shrouded in rumor and whispered possibilities. It sounded impossible, perhaps insane, but it was the only direction left. The remote clinic was sterile, smelling faintly of antiseptic and something metallic I could not place. The doctor, a man with tired eyes and a measured voice, led me into a stark consultation room. Lily sat beside me in her wheelchair, her gaze fixed on the sterile white walls. He did not waste time with pleasantries. He spoke plainly about the experimental procedure, detailing every horrific possibility. He explained how Lily's body might simply fail, how the nascent growth could wither and die before it even began. He described the pain she would endure, the agony of rejection if her system deemed the new tissue an invading force. Then he introduced the most unsettling risk, that the process could alter her, fundamentally change who she was. She might survive, he said, but emerge as something else, her mind or body irrevocably transformed into a state unknown. My blood turned cold with each word. I wanted to pull Lily away, to run from this place and its dark promises. But then I looked at my daughter. Her eyes, usually so empty, now held a deep, unyielding focus on the doctor's hands as he gestured towards the empty space where her legs once were. It was not a glance, it was a profound yearning, a desperate, powerful request to be whole again. The silent plea in her gaze was more powerful than any words she could have spoken. Fear choked me, a cold hand gripping my chest. This was madness, a terrifying gamble with her very essence. Yet, seeing her longing, feeling the weight of her silent suffering, I knew I had no other path. Every fiber of my being screamed for me to protect her from this danger. But a greater impulse, a desperate love, pushed me forward. I drew a ragged breath and, despite every misgiving tearing through me, I spoke the words that would seal our fate. I told him we would proceed. The doctor spoke of arrangements for the donor tissue. His words about the fresh supply did not settle my mind. I wheeled Lily's chair down another hallway. The corridor ended at a heavy metal door. I pushed it open. The room beyond was cold, a sterile smell mixed with a metallic scent. The machine filled a large part of the room. It was dark metal, scarred in places, with thick cables running into the wall. A wide, polished chrome chamber formed its core. This chamber had a smooth, sliding tray. 2 nurses stood beside it. Their faces held no expression. I brought Lily's chair right up to the machine. I knelt beside her. Her face looked small. I tried to smile for her, but my lips felt stiff. Her eyes met mine, wide with desperate hope. I saw her longing there, fierce and pure. I closed my own eyes for a moment, pressing her hand. Then I let go. The nurses took over. They guided Lily's wheelchair to the side. They laid her onto the machine's tray. She did not resist. The tray slid into the polished chamber. The door hissed shut, sealing her away. A cold feeling spread through me. I stood there, watching the machine. I heard the machinery start, a soft sound from within the metal shell. I walked out into the hallway, needing air. The door closed behind me with a soft click. The doctor's warnings came back to me. He had spoken of what she might become. I paced the hallway. Every shadow seemed to move. Every distant sound made me flinch. A cooler sat on the floor near the wall in the hallway. It was a standard medical cooler coated with a thin layer of condensation. The lid was slightly open. Inside, white-wrapped packages rested. They were clearly shaped like human limbs. The image of those wrapped limbs filled my thoughts. The sounds from within the chamber had stopped completely. My gut twisted. A deep dread filled me. The weight became agony. A tightness seized my chest. I could not stand the quiet, the uncertainty. I pushed the heavy metal door open a crack. A dim light spilled into the hall. The air inside was thick and warm. I saw the doctor and the 2 nurses gathered around the opened machine. Their backs were to me. They were bent low, their bodies obscuring the chamber's interior. A wet, tearing sound filled the space, a soft, rhythmic crunching. My breath hitched. One nurse turned her head slightly, and I saw her mouth. It was stained dark red, and a string of something glistened on her chin. Then the doctor looked up. His eyes met mine. His face was smeared with the same crimson. A piece of flesh dangled from his lips as he slowly chewed, his jaw working. The other nurse turned, her eyes wide, her face covered in dark, glistening gore. My gaze darted past them, seeking Lily. The chamber was empty. The tray was bare. But on the polished chrome floor of the machine, something pulsed. It was a mound of tissue, pale and twitching. It rose and fell with a sickening rhythm. Tiny, pale tendrils snaked out from it and grasped the air. It was not her. It was not human. I stood frozen in the doorway. The chewing stopped. Their eyes, dull and unseeing, were fixed on me. Leanne stared out the window as we drove, no words passing between us the entire journey. Our car crunched onto a gravel drive, stopping before a large stone building. It stood old and alone, surrounded by dark trees. A woman with keen eyes waited at a desk inside the reception area. She offered a wide smile that did not reach her gaze. "Welcome, Chris and Leanne," she said, her voice smooth. "We have been expecting you." Your quiet time begins now." An unnatural stillness filled the building. No sounds carried from other rooms. Leanne turned to me, her expression guarded. We sat across a polished table for dinner. Neither of us ate much of the steaming food. The quiet grew long between us. Leanne finally pushed her plate away. Her voice was cold. "Tell me, Chris," she said, "was she worth it?" My fork clattered against the plate. A flush spread across my face. "Leanne, please," I murmured, my voice barely audible. Just then, the receptionist appeared beside our table. Her smile remained fixed. "It seems you are ready for your quiet time," she announced softly. "The quiet room awaits. It is a mandatory part of your healing process here." She gestured down a shadowed corridor, her eyes watching our reaction closely. The receptionist guided Leanne down the shadowed corridor. I watched Leanne walk away, her shoulders slumped, and the time I spent alone felt long and heavy. When Leanne returned, her eyes were wide and vacant, her face pale and damp, and she walked past me without a glance. The receptionist then turned to me, her smile unchanged, and she led me towards the same door. The room held a single wooden chair and a plain table. A thick book lay open on the table. I approached and looked down at the pages. The script filling the pages was neat and precise. My eyes quickly found a sentence I had heard Leanne speak just moments ago, but here it was written as if Leanne herself had inscribed it. I scanned the lines below, and then I saw my own name printed there. The words that followed detailed my infidelity, listing specific dates and places that only I knew existed. A chill started in my spine as I read my confession, already meticulously laid out for me in black ink. This was not a journal for me to write my truth. It was a script. A click sounded from behind me. I turned my head slowly to the door. It was closed, and I knew it was locked. My gaze returned to the open book on the table, still showing my already written words. A deep chill had settled into my bones. The heavy air in the room seemed to press in on me from all sides. My breath came in shallow bursts. Then the pen lying beside the book stirred. It lifted slowly, moving without a hand guiding it. The silver tip dipped towards the page and hovered above the next blank line. My eyes widened, watching it intently. The pen began to write, its strokes smooth and deliberate. The ink flowed, forming letters into words, then sentences. It filled the page with more details of my life, events I had forgotten, and thoughts I had never spoken aloud. I reached out a hand to stop it, but my fingers passed through empty air above the moving pen. It was not a physical object in that moment, but a force. A sudden, sharp pain lanced through my mind, a violation of my inner self. The words appeared on the page as if plucked directly from my consciousness, but not by my will. This was my confession, yet it was not mine to write. I pressed my ear against the locked door, straining to hear something from the corridor. I called out Leanne's name, my voice a desperate croak. No answer came back, only the unnerving quiet that seemed to have swallowed the entire building. Her silence was a heavy weight, confirming either her powerlessness or a terrible agreement. The pen continued its relentless task, revealing more intimate details, shaping a version of me that was not my own. My identity felt like it was dissolving with each new line, replaced by the narrative this room imposed. I was trapped, watching my truth being rewritten, becoming someone else's story. The entrance was a vertical slit in the rock, barely wide enough for me to squeeze through. I inhaled, then exhaled. The rock face pressed against my chest and my back, its cold surface a constant reminder of the crushing space around me. Each forward shuffle felt like an act of rebellion against the stone that wanted to hold me still. My heart hammered against my ribs, a rapid, frantic rhythm that echoed the confined space. I could not see Leo behind me, but I knew he followed. He always followed. The darkness ahead was absolute, swallowing the weak beam of my headlamp before it could penetrate. I focused on the rough texture of the wall before my face, counting each tiny projection and fissure, anything to distract from the growing panic. A desperate fear of being trapped, of the stone closing around me forever, tightened its grip. My breath caught in my throat. I pushed forward, a desperate urgency driving me, wanting only to break free from the rock's embrace. Then the space opened without warning. My body stumbled forward into an immense void. The headlamp beam, previously swallowed, now stretched out into a cavern of impossible scale. It revealed a vast, glittering expanse. The walls soared upwards, disappearing into a blackness that suggested boundless height. Crystal formations larger than trees climbed the cavern faces, catching the light in a million points. The air was still and cold, carrying a mineral scent. I spun, taking in the impossible vista, my previous terror replaced by an astonished wonder. The ground under my feet was smooth rock, leading into the heart of this colossal space. A chill traced its way down my spine, a feeling not of fear but of something else, something expectant and grand. We were truly alone in this magnificent world. The smooth rock stretched before us, an inviting pathway into the colossal space. Each step echoed slightly, the sound dissipating into the immense vault above. The air remained still and cold, tasting of minerals and deep earth. Leo walked beside me, his headlamp beam merging with mine to illuminate the polished floor. We moved without speaking, lost in the sheer scale of the discovery. The cavern's natural formations continued around us, vast crystalline structures catching and refracting our light into fractured rainbows. It felt ancient, untouched by anything but geological time. We walked for what felt like a long time, deeper into the cavern's expansive heart. Then, ahead of us, a shape emerged from the gloom. It was too dark at first to discern its nature, a solid block against the glittering walls. We approached slowly, our footsteps growing softer, a sense of something wrong beginning to settle. The air seemed to grow heavier, pressing gently against my skin. As we drew closer, the shape resolved itself, and a wave of disbelief washed over me. It was a grand piano. The instrument stood in the middle of the cavern floor, a stark, impossibly placed object. Its dark wood caught the light from our lamps. A thick blanket of snow covered its lid and keys, tiny ice crystals sparkling on the black surface. The snow did not melt. It rested there, undisturbed, utterly alien to the pristine cave environment. No footprints led to it, no sign of any passage. It simply existed, massive and silent, a thing that should not be in this place. The sight made my breath catch. My mind struggled to reconcile the image before me with the natural world around us. The cavern, so perfect and untouched moments before, now held this impossible secret. A deep chill, separate from the cold air, permeated my bones. Leo stopped beside me. His lamp beam centered on the piano. We stood there, staring at the incongruous form. The pristine rock floor around its base was smooth, untouched by any wear. This object appeared whole, completely out of context, utterly defiant of logic. The wonder of the cave suddenly vanished, replaced by a disquieting question that resonated in the hollow space. Every sense told me this was impossible, yet it stood there, undeniable. The grand piano sat before us, an undeniable challenge to our understanding. My lamp beam illuminated the snow-covered keys, a stark contrast to the dark wood. A strange pull drew me forward, an impulse stronger than logic or caution. I reached out a hand, my fingers hovering above the cold, crystallized surface. Leo made no move to stop me. His own lamp beam remained fixed on the instrument, his posture rigid. I felt an undeniable need to understand, to break the impossibility of its presence. My fingers brushed against the snow, cold and dry, then pressed down onto a black key. A single, clear note rang out, bright and sharp. The sound did not echo through the cavern. Instead, it struck the very rock around us with a physical force. A deep shudder ran through the ground, vibrating up through my feet. Then a groan, monstrous and ancient, ripped through the air above. The colossal walls of the cavern began to move. Above us, a network of deep fissures cracked open across the stone ceiling. Dust, thick and choking, rained down from the newly formed chasms. Small rocks detached and tumbled, gaining speed as they fell. The cave entrance, far behind us, was no longer visible, replaced by a churning, violent maelstrom of falling stone. A tremendous roar erupted from that distant point, the sound of rock grinding against rock, of the world tearing itself apart. "Get away." Leo's voice ripped through the din, but it was not his voice. It was deeper, guttural, a sound strained through a grinding mechanism, metallic and distorted. "Get away from it." But I could not move. My fingers were clamped to the key, held with an impossible, unyielding grip. The other keys, black and white, began to rise and fall around my trapped hand, striking rapid, discordant notes. The piano itself shuddered, a terrible vibration shaking through its dark frame. My arm was wrenched, pulling my whole body forward, pressing my chest against the cold, snow-covered surface of the instrument. The snow did not move. It clung to the piano, unaffected by the violent tremors. My left hand instinctively tried to pull free, but the single key held me fast, an unbreakable bond. The cavern screamed. More massive sections of the ceiling tore loose, crashing down onto the smooth rock floor with impacts that shook the very ground. The air filled with deafening noise and stinging grit. The collapsing entrance was drawing closer, a visible, terrifying wave of destruction heading our way. My eyes darted to Leo. He was scrambling backwards, his face a mask of terror, his lamp beam swinging wildly. His distorted voice screamed another warning, an incomprehensible garble of mangled sound. My own body was now pressed flat against the piano, unable to escape. The instrument was not just holding me, it was drawing me in, its dark surface radiating a cold energy that pierced my clothes. I felt a sudden, sickening click within the mechanism of the piano itself. A thin, metallic cable, previously unseen, shot out from beneath the keyboard. It wrapped around my wrist, tightening with brutal force. A cold, alien intelligence seemed to emanate from the piano, a terrible, hungry presence. I was a part of it now, bound to its horrifying purpose. The world was ending, and I was pinned to the cause, a prisoner to the thing I had awakened. My body was pressed flat against the piano, unable to escape. The instrument radiated cold energy that pierced my clothes. The metallic cable tightened around my wrist with brutal force. I was part of it now, bound to its purpose. The world was ending, and I was pinned to the cause, a prisoner to the thing I had awakened. Leo scrambled backward. His face showed terror. His lamp beam swung. His distorted voice screamed another warning, a garble of mangled sound. The collapsing entrance drew closer, a visible wave of destruction heading our way. Stones rained down from above, impacting the floor with deafening force, sending tremors through the cavern. I looked at Leo. His wide eyes met mine with a desperate question. He took another step back, then hesitated, his gaze tearing from me to the destruction. A new resolve hardened within me. He could not stay. He could not share this fate. "Go!" I screamed against the din, my throat raw. "Leo, go! Get out now!" He shook his head, resistance on his face. He stepped towards me, extending a hand to free me. "No," I roared, the sound tearing my throat. "Do not be a fool. Run. Get out of here while you still can." My voice broke, yet the command remained. The ground bucked beneath us. A colossal chunk of rock peeled from the ceiling. It crashed to the floor behind Leo, sending up a cloud of dust and stone shards. The impact hurled him backward. He landed. His lamp beam spun across the floor, momentarily blinding us. "Go. Leave me," I shrieked, my voice cracking, desperate. "Save yourself. There is no other way." He pushed himself up, trembling. He looked at me, sorrow on his face. His distorted voice whimpered something I could not understand, a sound of despair. His eyes lingered on mine for a moment. He stumbled, then turned. He began to run, scrambling over the broken rock, heading towards the narrow opening that had been our entry. The collapsing entrance swallowed him from view, but the sounds of its destruction continued, intensifying. The air thickened with dust and the smell of pulverized stone, filling my lungs with grit. The piano continued its music, its keys rising and falling. The cable held me fast, pulling me deeper into the instrument's grasp. I stared at the space where the entrance had been. A wall of falling rock, dust, and crushing sound replaced it. The grinding roar of stone against stone shook the entire cavern. The way out was sealed. I was alone now, bound to the dark instrument in the heart of the collapsing mountain. The cold energy from the piano intensified, seeping into my bones, into my thoughts. The air became heavy, pressing against me. The notes grew louder, echoing not through the cavern but within me. A final psalm.